Hi again. So last time we were talking about harmony in part 3. This is already part 4. Sorry about that. But there's just so much to talk about with this music, even just looking at this theme and some of the chords. So last time I was talking about my theory about how flat 2 is the chord of death and how our applied chords we typically usually follow with that chord that we're tonicizing. So 5, 7 of 5 would go to 5, but instead it goes to 1. 5, 7 of 2, or sorry, 5, 7 of flat 2 should go to flat 2, but it doesn't. So my theory here is that we're getting more and more chromatic as we go on in this phrase until measure 5, of course. But we're reverting backwards towards that death chord. We're kind of stuck in a rut, which if you're in the Haunted Mansion, they're always asking you to be one more, right? They have 999 happy haunts. Those are the ones that reside there. They're stuck in the house. So the key of B flat major, or the B flat major triad, is the Haunted Mansion itself, in my opinion. All the music works around it. I'm going to show you another reason in a little while why it works around it. But let's take a look at the voice leading. The voice leading is how the chords move from one to another. And we typically move in a stepwise motion, so it's easy to play, easy to sing. So I've reduced this down to that main theme in the top voice and the treble clef right here. And then in the bass, I put block chords just so we can see how they would hypothetically move. I know that the bass line doesn't do this. It's oscillating between perfect fifths or perfect fourths, however you want to look at it. But here I wanted to show just the root chord and root position and how those would move from chord to chord. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. It'll sound a little bit different than my last video when I wrote it in chorale style, but it just shows how it's so easy to manipulate this theme and change everything around it. I'm also going to play this bass part up an octave because it sounds a little muddy that low. So with some of the lines that I've drawn in here, you can see starting on the lowest note, we go from A up to B, B down to A, and then A to B flat. So we have this in the bass, of course dictated by root position chords. And then we hold this A for a while. That's what that dashed line means. We're holding it as a common tone for a while until we finally get that leading tone, the G sharp we talked about, back to A. So we don't really do too much with the bass line. That's it. It's pretty stagnant. It doesn't do very much. Same goes for that upper voice as well. So we're starting with E to D sharp. And we go back to E. We're writing in contrary motion from the bass part here. So we're going in opposite directions. And then we come back down this way. Similar to what we did in the bass, here we went A, B flat. This upper voice here, E, D sharp, E, D, again with some semitone changes here. We go back to E from that D. So we have some very similar inward, outward, inward, outward. And then we start adding sevenths to these chords. We keep the bottom note and the middle note here, common tones, and then we start to change to E flat here. We go from E to E flat. And if you know anything about music, E flat and D sharp are inharmonic. D sharp, E flat, meaning they're the same pitch right there. Now I believe that this E splits and it goes up to F, but also down to E flat. And then it returns back to that single pitch. They resolve the same contrary motion again. And then spreads out again. E goes to F, and this time E to E flat as well. F here then resolves down to E, and that's the common tone between the 5, 7, and 1. E flat here sinks down to D. And the C flat right here, C flat is inharmonic to B. That's why it had a dotted line, but I covered it up. So C flat equals B. So we still have this common tone in the bottom voices here, except for from C to C flat. That's the only time that it changes. So that upper voice starting on E, and that's what it does. It's a little bit more complicated than the very bottom note, but it's essentially moving by semitone here, moving by step, splitting a little bit, tiny bit more complicated. But even when I play those lines, you can still hear hints of the theme. So those chords really do support what's going on in that main theme, especially in those first two measures where we have those outlines of triads, which we talked about in one of the first two videos. So these groups right here, those highlight the triads that are happening, or the harmonies that happen below them. So you know how we just talked about that bass line? In root position with those chords, we'd have A, B flat, A, right? In that order. In here, I've shown it even more broken down, just as a bass line here, in the order that they appear. So measure numbers across the top, measures 1 and 3, we have A. So we go A, B flat. So I want to focus on those 4 notes. If we were to look at the entire piece, I've hinted at this in another video before, we have an overall harmonic key scheme of A, B flat, B. The same notes that were used right here, but in a different order. So if I can zoom out there, you can see we start with A, of course, but then we switch this B and B flat. And that way we are ascending by semitone each time we have a key. So this is A minor, this is B flat minor, and this is B minor. Think about, if you know your key signatures pretty well, think about those key signatures. A minor, we have 0 flats and sharps. B flat minor, we have 5 flats, lots of flats. And then B minor, we have 2 sharps. So we're at the very end of the spectrum. We start with nothing, and then we add a whole bunch of flats. Then we take all the flats away and add sharps all of a sudden. So it's very distantly related keys, I'll say that. I also mentioned before the back relating to the death chord right here, which was B flat major. If we rule out what's going on here, this is like a cadential ending here. We're trying to drive to a cadence. B flat major triad right here is the center of attention between what's going on at the beginning and what's going on after it. Because what does follow, we have those back relating chords, 5, 7 of flat 2, 5, 7 flat 5 of flat 2 that relate back to this chord. We also have those melodic intervals that come into play, the dissonant ones. So if you compare this being in the center here to our overall key scheme, B flat is in the center again. So even though we're very familiar with that A minor theme, and that's what gets introduced to us, B flat is the star here. Our key of B flat minor, the note B flat itself, that is our star. B flat minor, B flat is the Haunted Mansion. So I hope you have enjoyed this video and this series. That's about my initial deep dive into this piece. If anything ever comes up again, I will definitely make another video and talk about it. But from the information that I have, meaning the score that I have and the brief analysis I've been able to do, this is my conclusion. B flat is the Haunted Mansion. And before you go, remember this page where I said we didn't get G sharp for a long time, the leading tone? That's because B flat is your flat scale degree 2. It itself is the note that wants to go down to tonic as well. So instead of resolving up to A, we're resolving down to A from B flat. Thanks.